General Lee decides to march up into North so that they can cut off the North supply lines. Hopefully this would be able to make the North decide to surrender. Well, not really surrender, but give up. But General Meade knows what to do. He marches towards Mr. Lee's army and they meet in a small town of Gettysburg. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. At this time, it was a small town. Not much has been going on in it. Not that exciting. Until this day. Today, General Lee decides to march into Gettysburg, where American forces, Union forces, are waiting for them because they're both American. Duh. That's basically saying the redcoats are coming even if they're all redcoats. The rebels are coming. The rebels are coming. The emperor is coming. That's good. But anyways, now what happens here is the first day of Gettysburg. Just one and the first of a bunch of grueling days with massive kill counts. And the massive kill count is starting to lift up the curtain so that it can reveal itself. On the first day, in the battle, in the small farm town, already hundreds of people are dying. Some people are having their heads crushed to death, at least according to this random YouTube documentary, and I don't get it because they're basically saying, well, I guess that because this is part of a gun and it's made out of something solid, we could just hit somebody on the head and then they would blow up. That's totally realistic. No, it's not. But anyways, now day 2. It happens in the woods, and the woods equals death. Because now there isn't just gunfire from the buildings. Now there are millions of trees everywhere for people to hide behind, for people to pick out, and then people shooting them so that their heads blow up, and the usual. The things that you see in the movies and the documentaries and the History Channel, I guess. It's not even history these days. It's more of monsters and fishing and not history. But anyways, now the Battle of Gettysburg truly made its part in this wood battle. In this wood battle, it was the Union who were digging a trenches. This type of warfare, defensive position, had been created during the Roman times, which means, pretty powerful for it to stand the time. I mean, not a lot of things even were able to stand time. But anyways, when the Confederates charged up the wooded hills, they were completely obliterated. For one regiment. All the other regiments, the Union were being obliterated. At this time, the Confederates decided to be like, you know what? We're winning a lot. But still, Meade has its own plans. And Meade's plans is something simple. Fishing hooks. He was going to create a defensive line that looks a lot like a fishing hook. And boom, then they would be able to hook the enemy while also maintaining a defensive position. And this would have worked masterfully if only it weren't for this one cavalry general who was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna smoke my cigarettes and also just not follow my orders. Yeah, what can go wrong? I mean, this defensive position isn't even for defense, this defensive position. And then, right after that, the Confederates smashed through the broken lines thanks to that dumbass cavalry general, who then died because a cannonball hit his leg, blowing it off. Hooray! One Union officer quoted, "It was bad for him, but good for us." And that was very true, because at least you don't need a psychopath on your hands to control, because he's not going to do anything that's good for us. Meanwhile, one really good general who's been doing a lot for his men gets shot in the hip and dies. Somebody tries to cure him, but turns out a bullet went through the water patch, and there's no more water in it, so... Sir, okay, I leave you to your fate, and I bid you farewell, and you're not gonna be buried. Goodbye! And then, one of the best generals in the Union Army during Gettysburg passed away from a bullet to the hip, and only holding the thoughts of his family and, of course, a broken sack of water. That's a bad way to go. Meanwhile, on day 3, they started taking the Union soldiers started taking Confederate capturers and decided to be like, here, how about let's do something? Okay, what division are you part of? I'm part of the Massachusetts division. Good. What about you? I'm part of the Virginia division. Good. What about you? I'm part of the Texas division. Good. And all the divisions were there except for the division controlled by James Pickett. You probably know Pickett from the Pig War. Yes, that was a thing. It wasn't really a war, but it was still a big conflict. Now, Pickett had forced all of his men to either kill themselves or fight on without surrendering. And they kept this promise. And this is a very big pain in the ass for the Union troops. So, what they thought was that Pickett was going to send his troops down into a charge. And he did so. On the final day of this battle, Pickett's charge was one of the most important events in American military history. Pickett thought that the flanks had been fortified, so he decided to aim for the center. That's basically the same thing of saying, well, there's this tank. Well, the back armor is extremely weak, so I won't target there. I'll target the weakest point, the front, aka the strongest point. What could go wrong? Pickett's charge resulted in one of the worst manslaughters in American history. In fact, it was so terrible that even the Union generals understood this, and reportedly, one Union officer jumped out to tend the Confederate wounded. Seeing this, the Union held their fire. And of course, after this, Lee came back and hit for a counterattack that never came. He finally retreated back into Virginia. This was a turning point. From now on, the Confederates were not pushing up, but pushing down. The Battle of Gettysburg was the most important battle in American history. Yet, it caused the loss of life 10 times greater than D-Day. And yes, you can visit Gettysburg today. There are still people in it, don't worry. And here, a new national cemetery was created, where the main speaker spoke for a few hours. Then, the main speaker let Abraham Lincoln to make a few quick but appropriate remarks. And in 2 minutes, Abraham Lincoln masterfully told everybody in the world about America's purpose in the world. And he emphasized the need to fight on. And they were going to fight on. And the end of the war was not coming. The end of the war was not coming for a long time.